My brother sets his phone on the living room table, face down at first, then flips its screen up so everyone can see the recording light blinking red. The little dot pulses like a heartbeat. "Just for accuracy," he says, but his voice is too calm, too rehearsed, too perfectly measured, like he's practiced this moment in the mirror 100 times. I look around the room and realize no one is surprised. No one seems startled or confused. My mom sits on the couch with her hands folded neatly in her lap, fingers interlaced like she's holding something together. My dad leans back in his chair with the expression of someone who's already heard this speech, who's already made up his mind. Aunt Karen and Uncle Nathan exchange the kind of look that suggests they've been briefed beforehand, that they know exactly what's coming. Even my cousin Jacob, who usually laughs at family drama and brings levity to serious moments, sits rigid in his chair like he's been told precisely what to do and say. The meeting has already started without me. I was invited to participate in something that was already decided, already finalized, already set in stone long before I walked through that door. My brother leans forward in his chair, his elbows on his knees, and I see it clearly for the first time. This isn't a conversation. This isn't a discussion where both sides get heard. It's an execution dressed up as concern. It's a trial where I didn't know I was being prosecuted. It's a verdict being delivered. He says quietly, almost gently, "We all agreed this was necessary." Those words hit differently when you realize you're the only one who didn't know about the agreement. Those words hit hard when you realize this entire room has been waiting for you to walk into a trap they've carefully constructed. My brother begins explaining their worries about my recent decisions, and I notice immediately that he's organized them chronologically, which tells me he's rehearsed this many times. That time I changed jobs without telling them first, without asking their permission or advice. The weekend I went to the beach alone and didn't answer my phone for 4 hours because I wanted to be present, wanted to feel the sun and not be distracted. The way I've been distant lately, not showing up to every single family event like I used to, setting boundaries, protecting my own peace. The way I supposedly snapped at Dad last month over something that wasn't even his fault, when really I was reacting to my brother's comment. Each example feels polished, like he's been practicing in front of a mirror or rehearsing with someone. But here's what's truly dangerous about his approach. He frames everything as concern, not accusation. He never says, "You're reckless." Instead he says, "We're worried you're not thinking clearly." He never says, "You're selfish." Instead he says, "We just want to make sure you're okay." He never says, "You're unstable." Instead he says, "We think you might benefit from talking to someone." Concern is harder to fight than anger. Anger you can argue with. Anger you can raise your voice against. Anger you can defend yourself from. But concern makes you feel guilty for defending yourself. Concern makes you doubt your own perspective. Concern makes you question whether maybe, just maybe, they're right and you're wrong. My father nods along repeatedly, and I realize my brother has already fed him these stories. Multiple times. They've rehearsed the worried expressions, the disappointed sighs, the pauses that convey sadness. My mother looks at me with eyes that say she's been convinced I'm falling apart, even though I'm sitting right in front of her, breathing normally, speaking clearly, not a trace of instability in my voice or demeanor. The concern is fake, but it's so perfectly delivered. It's an Oscar-worthy performance, and everyone is believing it. One by one the relatives speak. Not passionately, not from the heart, carefully, like they're reading from an invisible script that my brother wrote and distributed. Aunt Karen says, "We just care about you, honey. That's all this is." Uncle Nathan says, "This isn't coming from a bad place. We love you." My cousin Jacob, who I've told things to in confidence, things I trusted him with as family, things I thought were between us, repeats phrases I recognize from my brother's opening statement. Not his own words. Not his own observations. His words. My brother's exact words coming out of my cousin's mouth like he's a ventriloquist dummy. "You've always been someone who acts without thinking." I've never heard Jacob say that before. I've never given him any reason to believe that. My brother put those words into my family's mouths. And now they're parroting them back like they discovered the truth themselves. I realize in that moment that they aren't forming their own opinions in this room. They're not thinking independently about my actual behavior. They're not remembering their own experiences with me. They're reinforcing a single opinion that was already formed, already decided, already set in stone before I even arrived at this house. No one asks me what actually happened in those moments. No one says, "Tell us your side." No one says, "Maybe there's context we're missing." They're not interested in my perspective. They came here with a conclusion already chosen. They came here to deliver a verdict, not to have a real conversation or hear my truth. My brother sits back in his chair, watching faces carefully, nodding when someone hits the right emotional note. He's the director and everyone else is performing. I'm the only one who didn't get a script, the only one who didn't rehearse, the only one caught off guard. Midway through Aunt Karen's carefully measured concerns about my well-being, someone mentions an incident from last month. A dinner where I supposedly snapped at my dad over something trivial and hurtful. But the detail is wrong. Completely, factually wrong. The dinner was at a restaurant downtown, not at home like they're saying. It was my brother who said the thing that bothered me, not my dad. It was my brother's comment that was out of line. And my reaction was actually justified. It's a small error, but it's an error. It's a crack in the foundation of their narrative. I almost corrected immediately. My mouth opens. My throat tightens. I can feel the words forming. Then something inside me says don't speak. Something tells me to wait and observe. Something whispers that I should see how they handle this inconsistency. I want to know something important. I want to know if anyone else notices that the story doesn't match what actually happened. Wait. Breathe. I watch the room carefully. Silence stretches. No one corrects the detail. No one pauses or says, "Wait, I thought that happened at the restaurant." Either they didn't notice the inconsistency, or they're pretending they didn't notice. Either way, that silence tells me everything I need to know about what's happening here. The truth doesn't matter in this room. Only the narrative matters. The narrative that my brother has carefully constructed and built over months. I decide in that moment to say very little. I nod occasionally. I listen carefully. I keep my face neutral and unreadable. The less I speak, the more my brother talks to fill the gaps. He explains my intentions as if he knows them better than I do. He justifies outcomes that no one even questioned. He keeps talking because he's afraid of silence. Silence is where doubt lives. Silence is where people start thinking for themselves. So he doesn't stop talking. He talks more. He contradicts a timeline he gave 5 minutes earlier, but he says it so smoothly, so confidently, that most people don't catch it. I make a mental note. He says the dinner was 2 months ago, but earlier he said it was 3 weeks. He says I've been withdrawing for months, but then he mentions recent examples that don't fit. I catalog each contradiction quietly in my head. My silence bothers him more than anger would have. I can see it in the way he glances at me repeatedly, searching my face for a reaction he can control or counter or explain away. He's used to me defending myself, used to me explaining my perspective, used to me trying to convince people of the truth. He's not used to me just listening, just watching, just remembering, not used to me staying quiet. The meeting ends after nearly 2 hours with a collective exhale, like something uncomfortable is finally done. Like a burden has been lifted. My brother says, "Thank you for being mature about this." Like I had a choice. Like I could have done anything other than sit there and absorb accusations. My mother reaches over and squeezes my hand. "We're just trying to help," she says. "We love you so much." That phrase, being mature, lands wrong in my chest. Maturity wasn't the goal here. Submission was. Agreement was. Acceptance of their version of me as the unstable one, the unreliable one, the one who needs supervision and intervention and family meetings to fix her. They want me to thank them for the intervention, to prove I've accepted the diagnosis, to smile and nod and agree that yes, maybe I have been making poor decisions. I smile and nod because I'm learning something crucial in that moment. Sometimes the smartest move is to let people believe they've won. Sometimes the best strategy is silence and agreement. Sometimes letting them think they've successfully controlled you is more powerful than fighting back. Alone in my car on the drive home, I replay every word, every phrase, every sentence. Certain language keeps echoing in my head like a song I can't get out. Erratic behavior. Pattern of poor judgment. Distance from family. Needs help. I've heard those exact phrases before. Not from my relatives independently thinking about me. From my brother. Months ago. When we disagreed about something personal, something important to me, something he wanted to control. He used language just like that to describe me. Now everyone in that room speaks with his voice. His vocabulary. His interpretations. His way of packaging concern around blame. I remember the first time he used that tone with me. It was years ago when I chose a different college than the one he wanted for me. He said I wasn't thinking clearly. He said my independence was selfishness. He said my confidence was arrogance. Now I'm watching him teach the entire family to speak about me the same way. It's not coincidence. It's not spontaneous observation. It's a calculated strategy. It's a plan. I think back through months of memories. Small moments start fitting together like puzzle pieces in a picture I never wanted to see. A comment from my brother about a choice I made. Advice I didn't ask for. Questions disguised as concern. Are you sure you're handling that okay? That seems like a lot for you right now. Don't you think you should talk to someone? I'm just worried about you. You seem off lately. Is everything okay at home? Each moment alone felt innocent enough. Together they form a pattern. And the pattern started long before the family meeting. It started the moment my brother decided I needed to be seen a certain way. It started when I stopped agreeing with him about everything. It started when I stopped needing him to validate my decisions. I pull over in a parking lot and open the Notes app on my phone. I write it down. Dates, conversations, exact words when I can remember them. Nothing secret. Nothing obtained illegally. Just facts on paper. Documentation. Evidence. At a family dinner a week later, my cousin Jacob says something that makes my blood cold. He uses a phrase almost word for word from the meeting. You've always been someone who acts without thinking things through. He doesn't even realize he's repeating something from my brother's script. He genuinely believes he came up with this observation himself. He thinks it's his own insight. That phrase. I've never said it about myself. I've never acted like I believe it. I've never given anyone reason to believe I'm impulsive or thoughtless. My brother put those words into my family's mouths. And now they're parroting them back like they discovered the truth themselves. It's like watching someone paint a portrait of you with a brush you never held, then showing everyone the painting as proof of who you really are. It's like watching someone write your story without your voice, then having that story presented as fact. I ask one neutral question to two different relatives on different days. I keep my tone casual, curious, like I'm just thinking out loud. I ask Aunt Karen while she's doing dishes, when exactly did you start noticing I was struggling? She gives me a specific time frame, 2 months ago. She's confident about it. She's thought about this. You sure? I write it down later in my Notes app. 2 months ago. Exactly. Then I ask Uncle Nathan the same question during a phone call. Same casual tone, same gentle approach. He says 3 months. He's also confident. He says it matter-of-factly like he's stating a fact. Neither date matches. Neither date makes sense together. The family meeting was supposedly called because of recent, escalating concerning behavior, but they can't agree on when the behavior started. They're both working from my brother's narrative, but they didn't memorize the details because they don't actually know them. They're filling in gaps with what feels right, and those gaps reveal the lie underneath everything. It's like they're reading from the same script, but nobody wrote down the specific dates. No one coordinated the timeline perfectly. They focused on emotional delivery and nodding along, not on the actual facts. I make another note. 2 separate timelines. 2 different stories told by 2 people who were supposedly on the same page at that secret call. This is the first real crack in the foundation. This is the moment I realize they're not remembering real events. They're reciting a narrative that doesn't hold up under the smallest scrutiny. Someone lets it slip at a casual lunch. Aunt Karen mentions, almost carelessly, a call that happened to get everyone on the same page. My name wasn't on that call. The conversation happens before they all sat down in that living room with the phone recording. It happened right after my brother and I disagreed about something personal, something he wanted to control, and I refused to let him control. He gathered everyone without me, without my knowledge, without my input. He built a case against me privately. He aligned everyone's stories before presenting the verdict. Then he invited me to hear what they'd all decided about me. That's when I know for certain. This was never about helping me. It was about controlling me. It was about maintaining his influence when I started stepping outside it, when I started thinking for myself. This isn't an intervention. It's a coordinated attack disguised as love. I feel the shift in my chest. The realization hits different when you know for certain it was premeditated. When you understand this wasn't spontaneous concern. This was planned. This was calculated. This was a strategy my brother executed perfectly until it started falling apart. I ask myself quietly late one night, lying in bed, staring at my ceiling. Who gains if I'm seen as unreliable? Who benefits from my family believing I can't trust my own judgment? Who wins in a world where I'm broken and doubtful? The answer is singular. One person. My brother. As long as I'm the unreliable one, he gets to be the concerned one. As long as I'm the one with problems, he's the one with solutions. As long as I'm struggling, he's essential. He needs me to be broken. Not physically broken. Socially broken. Emotionally broken. So that everyone looks to him as the stable one, the truthful one, the one who sees clearly. My struggle is his power. My doubt is his strength. He's built his entire position in this family on being the one who understands what's wrong with me. That's the real betrayal. Not just the lying, but the fact that he profits from my pain. Every doubt I have makes him stronger. Every mistake I'm said to have made gives him more credibility. I'm beginning to understand that some people don't want you to get better. They want you to stay broken so they can keep being the hero of the family story. I start collecting things systematically. Messages where my brother uses leading language designed to make me doubt myself. Messages like, "Are you sure about this?" And "Have you thought this through?" And "I'm just concerned." Dates of events and what actually happened versus what was claimed in that meeting. Invitations I received and didn't respond to immediately. And when those non-responses started being reframed as evidence of my distance. Calendar entries showing when I actually made decisions. Screenshots of conversations. Nothing secret. Nothing obtained illegally. Just documentation. Just evidence. I notice something that makes my stomach drop, something that changes everything. The narrative about my unreliability existed before the supposed incidents that proved it. My brother constructed the conclusion first, then worked backward to find evidence that fit the narrative. He didn't observe my problems and worry. He decided I was a problem, then observed everything through that lens. Every action was filtered through the predetermined story. It's like he wrote the ending first, then tried to create a beginning that would justify it. The evidence doesn't prove his case. Disproves it. Timeline is backwards. The cause comes after the effect. This is so fundamentally broken that I realize he never expected to be questioned this deeply. My brother reaches out more often now. Friendly. Overly calm. He wants reassurance that I've accepted the story he told about me. He texts, "How are you doing?" knowing the answer he wants to hear. He calls, just checking in, listening carefully for signs that I've internalized his version of me. He says, "I'm just making sure you're okay after everything." I give him exactly what he wants to hear. I tell him I've been thinking about things. I tell him maybe I have been stressed. I tell him, you might have a point about some of it. I let him believe he's won. I let him think his intervention worked. I let him think I've accepted defeat. That's when his guard drops completely. That's when he stops being careful. That's when he reveals himself. That's when he gets comfortable. His messages become less guarded. He says things like, "I knew you'd see reason eventually, and I'm glad you're finally listening to me." He's not checking on my well-being. He's confirming that his control worked. He's celebrating his victory over my independence. And that's when I realize how deep this goes. This isn't about concern. This is about dominance. At a casual family gathering, my brother references an outcome he claims happened because of my pattern of poor judgment. He says, "Remember how you made that decision without thinking it through?" But I remember the timeline. I have it written down. That outcome hadn't occurred yet when he says the concern began. The timeline doesn't work. The sequence doesn't match. If I made a bad decision 2 months ago, how was he worried about my behavior 3 months ago? That's impossible. That's literally impossible. Someone else in the room freezes for half a second. Their eyes narrow slightly. They noticed it too. The math doesn't work. The story contradicts itself. I say nothing. I don't point it out. I don't embarrass him. But the seed of doubt is planted in that room. It's growing. And I can see it growing in real time. That relative, one of my cousins, reaches out to me privately a few days later. She asks a careful question, phrased like curiosity, not accusation. "When exactly did you decide to make that job change? Was it before or after the beach trip?" She's asking because something doesn't add up in her head. The timeline my brother gave about when my problem started doesn't match the facts of when things actually happened. She's noticed the inconsistency. She's been thinking about it. She's been bothered by it. Doubt has entered the room. And once doubt gets in, once it takes root in someone's mind, it's hard to get it out. Grows. Spreads. It infects other people's certainty. One crack in the narrative is all it takes. One person willing to think for themselves instead of just accepting what they've been told. That one moment of critical thinking ripples outward. My brother senses control slipping. His tone shifts from concerned to urgent. He suggests another family meeting to clear up some misunderstandings. But the patience is gone. The careful concern has evaporated like morning dew. Urgency replaces the gentle worry. He needs to realign everyone before the doubt spreads further, before people start asking too many questions, before the inconsistencies become impossible to ignore. He needs to reassert control. He needs to rebuild the narrative before it collapses completely. He's no longer confident. He's scrambling. Urgency reveals fear. I know he's losing control because he's trying to grab it harder. His desperation shows. He's no longer the patient brother. He's the worried controller. He's the one whose authority is being questioned for the first time. And people can smell that desperation. He tells the same stories again, but they're different now. Details adjusted. Timelines shifted to fit reactions he didn't expect. He adds new information that wasn't in the original meeting. He softens some accusations and sharpens others. He says things like, "Actually, now that I think about it," and "I realize I might not have explained that clearly." He's rewriting history in real time. He's changing the narrative because the original narrative has too many holes. The original story is breaking apart. 3 versions of the same events now exist. The original, the one from the first family meeting, and this new one. The inconsistencies pile up like evidence at a crime scene. You can't tell 3 different versions of the truth. But you can tell 3 different versions of a lie. And everyone is watching him change the lie. Everyone is noticing that the lie keeps shifting. Nobody buys a story that needs constant revision. I learn he shared selective portions of the original recording with certain relatives. Not the whole thing. Just the parts that make him look concerned and me look defensive. Just the moments where I didn't explain myself well. Just the sections where my voice was tight. Selective truth is still a lie. It's maybe a worse lie, because it has the appearance of evidence. People think, Well, I heard the recording myself. But they didn't hear everything. They heard what my brother wanted them to hear. They heard the edited version. They heard the narrative filtered through his choices about what to share and what to hide. Partial truth becomes complete deception. And when that comes out, when people realize what was hidden, the betrayal doubles. Because now he's not just lying. He's actively managing what people see so they believe his version. In the new meeting, I ask one simple, factual question about dates. No emotion. No accusation. No anger in my voice. Just, can you walk me through the exact timeline again? When did you first notice this pattern? What was the first incident? Silence stretches too long. Uncomfortable. My brother starts to speak but falters. His words catch. He looks to Aunt Karen, who looks to Uncle Nathan. No one knows what the timeline is supposed to be, because they never actually documented it. They just agreed to the story without checking if the story made sense. They assumed he was right because he sounded right. They accepted the narrative because it came with confidence and concern. But now they're realizing that confidence might have been covering for lies. One person answers. Another corrects them. My brother interrupts and gives yet another version. The room tightens. The air feels different. People start looking at each other with confusion. The consistency is gone. The rehearsed agreement is breaking down. Cracks are forming everywhere. When 3 different people tell 3 different versions of a timeline, the lie falls apart. It doesn't matter how concerned my brother sounds if the facts don't match. It doesn't matter how rehearsed the narrative is if it keeps changing. Logic breaks through. Truth begins to emerge. And once truth starts emerging, once people see the lie clearly, they can't unsee it. They can't go back to believing the original story. I lay out the facts without commentary, without emotion, without accusation, just sequence, just date. Job change happened on this date. I show the email confirmation. The family concern supposedly started on this date, according to my brother's original statement. But the concern started before the job change happened. That's a fact. It's documented. So how could my job change have triggered a pattern that already existed? How could I have displayed behavior for months before I did the thing that supposedly caused it? It's impossible. It's logically impossible. It's mathematically impossible. Someone says it quietly. That doesn't line up. The truth is simple. The lies are complicated. And complicated always breaks under pressure, under scrutiny, under simple math, under facts that don't lie. Someone asks to hear the entire recording, not the edited parts, not the selected moments, all of it, every second, the full context. My brother hesitates. His hand moves to his phone, then stops. He says, "There's a lot of technical stuff, a lot of background noise." He's making excuses. He's stalling. He's protecting the narrative. Hesitation speaks louder than denial. If the recording proved his case, if it supported his version of events, he'd play it immediately. He'd want them to hear it. He'd say, "Yes, absolutely, listen for yourselves." Instead, he's trying to manage what people hear. Instead, he's offering reasons not to listen. That's when everyone knows. The recording doesn't say what he told them it says. Over the next few days, people ask him follow-up questions. Each question is simple and factual. Each answer contradicts something he said before. His tone sharpens. The concern disappears. The patient, worried brother act dissolves like morning fog. What emerges is defensive, angry, and increasingly desperate. He tries to attack the people asking questions instead of answering them. Why are you questioning me? I was the one trying to help. I was the one who cared enough to intervene. I was the one sacrificing my time. But his anger proves what his concern masked. This was never about helping anyone. It was about control. It was about power. And when control slips, when power is challenged, anger shows up. No shouting. No dramatic moment where he confesses and apologizes. No family explosion or apology tour. Just a quiet shift in how people look at him. My brother avoids my eyes now. When he enters a room, people don't automatically believe whatever he says. They don't assume he's the truthful one. They don't defer to his interpretation of events. They remember the contradictions. They remember his hesitation about the recording. They remember the timeline that didn't work. They remember the version that changed 3 times. They remember the concerned brother act and how quickly it turned to anger. I didn't need to prove who I was. I only needed to let the truth remove who I wasn't. And the truth, eventually, always surfaces. My brother built a case against me out of lies and selective evidence. But lies are fragile things. They break under the smallest pressure. Under simple questions. Under facts. Under timelines that don't match. I won. Not because I fought harder. Not because I screamed the loudest. Not because I exposed him publicly or took revenge. I won because I was patient enough to let him destroy himself. Because I was smart enough to be quiet. Because I was strong enough to let the truth do the work. Because I understood that the best revenge is simply letting people see who someone really is. The mask comes off. The narrative collapses. And he's left with nothing but his anger and his own lies.